She spent Christmas alone. Until someone remembered her at 7 o'clock on Christmas morning, Margaret turned on the lights and sat alone in her living room. The Christmas tree was glowing. The fireplace was warm. There were presents underneath the tree, but none of them had her name on them. Margaret was 79 years old, and this was the first Christmas of her life when she had absolutely no one coming home. She had spent 48 years making Christmas special for everyone else. Now, there was no one left to make it special for her. Margaret slowly reached for the remote control and turned on the whole television. Christmas music filled the room. Children laughed on the screen. Families opened presents. Mothers hugged their daughters. Fathers smiled at their grandchildren. Margaret watched quietly. Then, she lowered the volume. Too much noise, she whispered. But the truth was, it wasn't the noise that hurt. It was seeing what she no longer had. Margaret walked into the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. Inside was a small turkey. Enough for one person. She had bought it 3 days earlier. The woman at the grocery store had asked, "Are you having family over?" Margaret smiled. Yes. She had lied. She didn't know why. Maybe because saying, "No, I'm alone," felt too painful. Margaret had 2 children. Her son, David, lived in Texas. Her daughter, Susan, lived in New York. Both had families. Both had busy lives, and both had promised to call. Margaret looked at the clock. 7:15. Nothing. She made coffee. Then she sat beside the Christmas tree. She looked at an old photograph sitting on the mantel. It showed her husband, John, holding their 2 children when they were little. That photograph had been taken almost 40 years ago. Margaret remembered that Christmas. David was 6. Susan was 4. They had woken her before sunrise. Mom, wake up. Santa came. Margaret laughed at the memory. She remembered running downstairs in her pajamas. She remembered their little faces. She remembered John pretending to be surprised. As she remembered thinking, this is what happiness feels like. John had died 9 years ago. The children had grown up. Life moved forward. But Margaret sometimes wished life would slow down. Just for one day. At 9 a.m. her phone rang. Margaret grabbed it immediately. It was a number she didn't recognize. She answered. Hello? Mrs. Carter? Yes? This is the pharmacy. Margaret frowned. Oh, we're calling to remind you about your prescription. Margaret smiled politely. Thank you. She hung up. Then she laughed quietly. Even the pharmacy remembered me. She looked at her phone. Still no messages from her children. At noon, Margaret cooked the turkey. She set the table. Then she stopped. For a moment, she almost placed 3 extra plates. She had done it every Christmas, but today, she put only 1 plate on the table. 1 fork. 1 glass. 1 chair. She sat down. And ate alone. Halfway through the meal, she started crying. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a few tears rolling down her face. She wiped them away, then whispered, "It's okay." She said it again. "It's okay." But at WSN single quotes T. After lunch, Margaret walked to the bedroom. She opened an old wooden box. Inside were Christmas cards. Dozens of them. Some were from John. Some were from her children. Some were handmade. Cards from when David and Susan were little. She picked up 1. It was written in crooked handwriting. Merry Christmas, Mommy. Underneath was a drawing of a family. 4 stick figures. Margaret smiled. Then she held the card against her chest. Where did those years go? she whispered. At 4:30 p.m., Margaret turned off the Christmas lights. She couldn't bear looking at them anymore. Outside, snow had started falling. The street was quiet. Most houses were full of families. Margaret stood by the window. Then she noticed something. A little boy across the street was building a snowman. His father was helping him. His mother came outside carrying hot chocolate. The little boy laughed. Margaret smiled. Then she stepped away from the window. She didn't want to watch anymore. At 6 p.m., she changed into her pajamas. Christmas was over. At least for her. She turned off the television. The house became completely silent. Margaret walked toward the bedroom. Then she heard a car. She stopped. Headlights peered through the window. She walked slowly toward the front door. A car had stopped. Outside, Margaret's heart began beating faster. Driver's door opened. A young man stepped out. He walked toward her house. Then he knocked. Margaret opened the door. The young man smiled. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes." "My name is Ryan." Margaret looked confused. "I don't think we've met." Ryan smiled. "No, ma'am." He held out a small Christmas gift. "This is for you." Margaret stared at the gift. "For me?" "Yes." She looked behind him. "Who sent you?" Ryan smiled. "Nobody." Margaret frowned. "What do you mean?" Ryan looked embarrassed. "I deliver groceries in this neighborhood. I've seen you before." Margaret nodded slowly. "And today?" He paused. "I saw you sitting alone by the window." Margaret didn't know what to say. Ryan continued. "My grandmother used to sit by the window like that." Margaret looked at him. "She passed away last year." His voice became quiet. "She lived alone. I used to tell myself I would visit her more, but I was always busy." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. Ryan looked down. "One day, I wasn't busy anymore." He swallowed. "Because she was gone." Margaret reached for his hand. "I'm sorry." Ryan nodded. Double quotes, "Thank you." Then he handed her the gift. "Don't know your family. I don't know your story. But I didn't want you to spend Christmas thinking nobody remembered you." Margaret looked at the gift. Then she began crying. Ryan stepped back. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you upset." Margaret shook her head. "No." She smiled through her tears. "These are happy tears." She opened the gift. Inside was a small framed photograph. It was a picture of Margaret's house, taken from across the street, and beneath it was a handwritten note. "Someone sees you." Margaret covered her mouth. She couldn't speak. Ryan looked at her. "My grandmother used to say something." "What?" "She said you don't have to be family to care about someone." Margaret smiled. She was right. Ryan nodded. Then he said, "Merry Christmas, Mrs. Carter." He turned to leave. Margaret suddenly called after him, "Ryan?" He turned around. "Yes?" "Would you like some Christmas dinner?" Ryan smiled. "I already ate." Margaret shook her head. "I didn't ask if you were hungry." She smiled. "I asked if you'd keep an old woman company." Ryan laughed. "Okay." He came inside. Margaret turned the lights back on. She warmed the turkey. She made coffee. Ryan sat at the table. For the first time that day, there were 2 plates. 2 forks. 2 glasses. And 2 people talking. Margaret told him about John. She told him about David and Susan. She showed him old photographs. Ryan told her about his grandmother. They talked for hours. And somewhere between the stories, Margaret realized something. Christmas hadn't been ruined. that it had simply arrived in a different way. Later that night, Ryan stood by the door. Double quotes Mrs. Carter. Yes? Can I come back next Sunday? Margaret smiled. I'd like that. He left. Margaret closed the door. Then she looked around the house. It was still the same house. The same furniture. The same Christmas tree. The same empty rooms. But somehow, it didn't feel as empty. The next morning, Margaret woke up to a phone call. It was Susan. Mom? Yes, sweetheart. I'm sorry. Margaret smiled. For what? I should have called yesterday. Margaret looked at the Christmas tree. I know. There was silence. Then Susan said, Mom, can we talk? Of course. I miss you. Margaret closed her eyes. I miss you too. Then Susan said something Margaret had been waiting years to hear. I'm coming home next month. Margaret smiled. Really? Yes. And I'm bringing the kids. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I'll make your favorite dinner. Susan laughed. You always do. After the call ended, Margaret walked into the kitchen. She looked at the empty chair. Then smiled. She didn't know what the future would bring. She didn't know whether her children would visit as often as they promised. She didn't know whether life would suddenly become perfect. But she had learned something that Christmas. Sometimes the person who saves your heart isn't the person you expected. Sometimes kindness comes from a stranger. Sometimes family is the person who chooses to care. And sometimes all an old person needs is someone to knock on the door and say, you matter. So if you know someone who might be spending Christmas alone, don't assume they're okay. Call them, visit them, invite them to dinner. Because while you may think it's just another Christmas, to someone sitting alone in a quiet house, your phone call could become the most important gift they receive all year. And Margaret? She never forgot Ryan. Every Christmas after that, she left one extra plate on the table, not because she expected someone to come, but because she wanted to remember the night a stranger reminded her of something she had almost forgotten. She was still worth remembering.